Hi, my name is Lavinia. This is Peter. Welcome to Games Made Easy, a channel for those who want to learn and get better at board games quickly and easily. Today, thanks to our friend Robert, I'm going to teach you and give you some tips to one of my favorite board games. That's Terraforming Mars. What I enjoy the most in Terraforming Mars is how different every game is, and there's this incredible tension that builds up throughout the game where you don't really know who's going to win until the last points are added. If you're new to the channel, subscribe now. In Terraforming Mars, you are in control of a corporation competing against other corporations to transform Mars into a habitable planet. To do that, you will buy patents to implement projects on Mars that will raise 3 global parameters: the temperature, the oxygen, and the oceans. At the beginning, you place a marker here. This counts the number of generations it takes you to terraform Mars. Then you'll place a marker here at minus 30 degrees Celsius for temperature and at 0 for oxygen levels. You will place 9 ocean tiles here. Now, as these increase, more projects become available, which further raise the global parameters, and on until the temperature reaches plus 8 degrees, 14% in oxygen levels, and all 9 oceans are on Mars. When all 3 are reached, the player with the highest terraform rating and the most victory points wins the game. Now to start, players pick player marker cubes in the color they want. You place 1 cube on the 20 here, which is the terraform rating track, and each player takes 1 player board. This board is to keep track of money, steel, titanium, plants, energy, and heat. For now, I'll explain the beginner's game where you start with 10 project cards. At the end of the video, I'll explain the standard and corporate era variants, which add a few elements, but it's the way the game should be played once you're comfortable. Now, for now, set aside all the project cards and corporations that have a triangle on the lower left side. For your first few games, you will place a player cube on the number 1 on each of the 6 production tracks. These represent how much production you will produce by generation. Mega credits is the money in Terraforming Mars. You use them to pay for projects. Steel and titanium are also used to buy projects. Steel is used to buy building cards, and titanium is used to buy space cards. Steel is worth 2 mega credits when buying a card with a brown tag like this one, while titanium is worth 3 mega credits when buying a card with a yellow star tag like this one. Now, plants here may be converted to produce greenery on Mars. 8 plant resources can be converted into 1 greenery. Energy is often needed to power new buildings, and if it is unused at the end of a generation, it is converted into heat. Heat can be used to raise the temperature on Mars. 8 heat may be used to raise the temperature 1 step. Because of the long time span needed to complete these projects, the rounds in this game are called generations. For your first generation, you pick a starting player and you will distribute the beginner's corporations. The beginner corporations are all the same for all players. You'll start with money and projects. You receive 42 mega credits. This is the money in Terraforming Mars. You place these resource cubes on your player board. Gold, which is this one, is worth 10. Silver is worth 5. And bronze is worth 1. You also receive 10 project cards. These will impact your production of resources. Some of these cards need certain global conditions before they can be played. The requirements will always be in the box here. You might need a minimum temperature or a number of oceans or oxygen level before they can be played. In this case, it would require a minus 8 degrees Celsius before this card can be played, or 3 oceans on the map for this card, or 8% oxygen for this one here. Now, sometimes it can be a maximum marked in red, not yellow, where, for example, if the oxygen is more than 6%, then this card cannot be played anymore. Some other cards require a certain number of tags in play in your corporation, like energy, for example. You would need 2 energy for this one. You would need 2 science tags for this one, a Jovian tag for this one, and 3 nature tags before you can play this card. These tags do not represent your production, they represent the projects you've already put in play. If you meet the requirements, you can then buy the card and put it in play. You just spend the amount of mega credits shown on the top left corner of the card. Cards are either green, red, or blue. More than half the cards are green cards. These are automated projects which have a one-off impact and remain active for the rest of the game. The green cards can give various benefits. Some give resources, like this one here, and some increase production as well, like this one. Here it's important to understand the difference on the symbols. When a resource is on a brown background, it represents the production of that resource. However, when there's no background, it just represents the resource itself. For example, if you play this card, have a look here. This is the production with a brown background, which is also here, which means you're going to go up 2 production of plants. Now, this means that you're going to get 2 plant resources and you're going to put them here. Other green cards will also have victory points and they will be added or deducted at the end of the game. Finally, some other green cards can give you oceans, greenery, others will give you cities, or special tiles. Everything you need to know about these tiles is on this card here, so keep it close by for reference. For the oceans, note that they can only be placed on the blue hexes. These are reserved for oceans. When you place an ocean, remember to go up on your terraforming rate track 1 point. So for the greenery tiles, you can place them anywhere on Mars except the blue hexes and Noctis City, which are reserved. You also add an oxygen when you place a greenery and you go up 1 step on your terraforming rate track. Remember, it's not the greenery itself that raises your terraforming rate. It's because of this symbol here that raises the oxygen. Now, when the oxygen reaches 14%, you do not go up your terraforming rate track when you place a greenery. Remember, once you place a greenery, to put one of your cubes on it to claim it. You can place a city tile anywhere that is not on a blue hex. Also, city tiles cannot be placed next to each other unless the card says otherwise, like the Noctis City card. Now, we have these special brown tiles with conditions mentioned on the project card. Read the card for the placement restrictions and conditions. We also have this white city tile. This is for the capital, and there's a card that says capital on it. Whenever you place a tile, remember to collect the bonus resource under it. You can collect plants, steel, a card, titanium. Now, you can also collect an extra 2 mega credits every time you place a tile adjacent to an ocean. So for example, if I place this one here, you would get not only the 2 plants, you would also get 2 credits. Once you've played a green card, keep it face up next to your player board. That's it for the green cards. Now, let's have a look at the red cards. These are one-off events. You play them exactly like the green cards, except that instead of keeping them face up, you flip them after using them. That means you only use the tags when you play the card. For instance, if you use titanium to buy the card, or if you have a discount on earth tags. Also, quite a lot of them have a negative impact on other players. That's when the symbol is bordered in red, like here, here, and here. Note that both green and red cards may have some additional requirements. Some you can ignore, others you can't. You can ignore global parameters that have already peaked. So for example, if temperature's at maximum, you can still play the card. You can also choose not to take plants from other players, or say a player only has 2 plants, you take only 2 plants, but you cannot take from 2 players. It has to be 1 player. In this card here, for example, you would have to have 1 plant resource to take out in order to play this card. If not, you cannot play it. You have to, in this card, for example, be able to take your 1 step your energy production down in order to play the card. If you can't play the card. This card here, it has a red border, so it says you need to decrease, say, the heat production of any player. If no other player has heat production, then you have to be able to take it from yourself, otherwise you cannot play the card. Finally, you have blue action cards. These are cards that remain active throughout the game. Like the green cards, you keep them face up once you've played them. That's because they provide ongoing effects you can trigger at any time, or actions you can take. The action is represented by a red arrow, and you can take it once per generation. You place a cube of your color to mark when you've played it. So that's all for the project cards. Before I explain more, let's look at how you would play one generation. Generations are divided into 4 phases. We have this reference here. Keep it close by. It says what happens during the generation. Let's look at the 4 phases in more detail. The first phase is the turn order phase. It defines the first player. Now, this is the first player marker. We prefer to use this one. You move the first player marker clockwise at the beginning of each new generation. Also move the generation marker one up. The second phase is the research phase. For the first generation, you received 10 free project cards. From then on, every generation, you will receive 4 cards, but you will pay 3 credits per card you want to keep and play later. Projects you don't buy are discarded face down. If the deck runs out of cards, you reshuffle the discard pile and use those cards. There's no hand limit in this game. The third phase is the action phase. This is the main part of a generation where players will play 1 or 2 actions or pass. Sometimes players play 1 action because they're waiting for another player to do something that will have an impact on them. Play proceeds clockwise until all players have passed. There are quite a lot of available actions. Let's have a look in more detail at the 7 possible actions. You can play the action of a blue card already in play. Just put the cube on the card. You can also play a new project card and put it in play. For example, if you play this project card, you can buy it with steel because you have a building tag on it. But remember that you cannot get change back on steel or titanium. Check the global requirements, in this case there aren't any, that they're met, and that you have enough in this case to bring down the energy production to play the card. You play it, you raise the production, in this case of steel, by 2, and you keep it face up next to your player board. Another action is to convert 8 plants into greenery. You have to place it next to one of your tiles whenever possible. Now, if it's not possible, then you can place it anywhere. Don't forget the oxygen and terraforming rate if it applies. As an action, you can convert 8 heat to raise the temperature 1 step. If you reach here or here, you will also raise your heat production 1 step. Another action is to use a standard project. There are 6 projects to choose from and they are all printed on the board. You have 6 actions here marked with red arrows. They each count as 1 action. Now the first one, selling patents, just means you sell cards for 1 mega credit per card. Selling multiple cards at the same time still only counts as 1 action. The second project is a power plant and you pay 11 credits to increase your energy production by 1 step. The asteroid, you pay 14 credits to increase temperature 1 step and therefore your terraforming rate. Now with aquifer, you pay 18 credits to place an ocean tile and go up 1 in your terraforming rate. Remember that some cards also allow you to place oceans, not just the aquifer project. With the greenery, you will pay 23 credits and you will place a greenery tile on the map. Don't forget to raise the oxygen. The 6th project lets you place a city for 25 credits. Remember that city tiles cannot be placed next to each other. Don't forget to also increase your mega credit production 1 step. Finally, we have 2 more actions left. Both can provide bonus points. The milestones reward the player who claims them first, and the awards for the player who wins them. Let's have a look at the milestones. As an action, if you meet the criteria of a milestone, you may claim it by paying 8 credits and placing a cube of your color on the 8 and on the milestone you're claiming. The terraformer can be claimed as soon as you have a terraforming rate of 35. Now, the mayor, you can claim it when you have 3 city tiles. And the gardener, you can claim it when you have 3 greenery tiles. The builder, after having at least 8 blue or green cards in play with a building tag. And finally, the planner, if you have at least 16 cards in your hand when you claim the milestone. A milestone may only be claimed by 1 player, so this could not happen. And only 3 out of the 5 milestones can be claimed, so there is a race to reach these. Each claimed milestone gives you 5 victory points at the end of the game. Finally, the last action is to fund an award. There is no requirement to be met to fund an award. The first award only costs 8 credits to be funded, and the second 14, and the third 20 credits. These are the awards and what they are awarded for. The landlord is for the player who owns the most tiles in play. The banker is having the highest credit production. The scientist is having the most science tags in play. The thermalist is having the most heat resource cubes, not production. and the miner is having the most steel and titanium resource cubes, not production. Only 3 awards can be funded per game. In the final scoring, each award is judged and 5 victory points are awarded to the player who wins the category. It does not matter who funded it. The contender or runner-up gets 2 victory points, except in a 2-player game. Once you don't want to take any more actions, you pass. But once you've passed, you cannot take part in the generation anymore. Finally, when all the players have passed, that marks the end of the action phase, and we begin the last phase of the generation, which is the production phase. Usually all the players perform this at the same time. Any leftover energy, you convert it into heat. Now then we're going to do your mega credit income. This is the sum of your terraforming rate at that point in the game and your production credit here. Say for example I have 30 in the terraforming rate, I've got 2, so that's 32. Your mega credit production can go up to -5, which you would take out of your terraforming rate. All other resources cannot go below 0. On the other hand, production is not limited to just 10, just add another cube on the 10. Then you collect all the other resources as per their production rate and you place them on the player board. So for example here, this is 4, this is 1, this is 3. There's no energy and there is 4 heat production. Finally, you remove any player markers from used action cards so that they may be used in the next generation. Now you're ready to start the next generation. Keep going generation after generation until all 3 global parameters, the oxygen, the oceans, and the temperature, are at the maximum. That marks the end of the game. You finish that last generation and you do one last production phase. Any players who have enough plants to build greeneries may do so, starting with the player who has the first player marker. But that is the only thing you can do during that last phase. Then we score the final points in the following order. We usually assign a player to count the points from the main board for everyone. You start with your terraforming rate. At the end of the game, that's your base score. Then you add the awards points. Now here, you get 5 points for the winner and 2 points for the second place if it's more than 2 players. Now the red one, for example, here funded the landlord. But in this case, the blue has more tiles than the red, so the blue is going to get the 5 points, not the red. And because it's a 2-player game, the player doesn't get the 2 points. Now ties are friendly, and say they had had the same number of tiles, they would have both scored the 5 points. Now we add the milestones. The blue gets 10 points and the red gets 5 points. Then we're going to score 1 point for every greenery. So when you're counting the greenery, as you count it, you remove the cubes. So say for the red, we get 3 points for the greenery. And for the blue, 4 points. Then we're going to score for the cities. They're worth 1 point for every greenery that surrounds them, no matter who owned it. So for example, the blue here will get 2 points. The red also. Finally, we score the points on the blue and green cards that collect resources, like the oceans, the cities, the science, and all the others. The blue player has this card with animals on it, and it says you make 1 point for every 2 animals, so that would be 3 points. Finally, gather all your played cards, add all the victory points on the cards. Don't forget to include the event red cards and also include negative points. Once you've played a few games with a beginner corporation, you can start playing the game with the standard corporations. Here, each corporation is different, which makes the game a lot more varied. You'll distribute 2 cards to each player and pick one. You'll also distribute 10 project cards, except now you'll pay 3 mega credits per card you want to keep. Let's have a look at these corporations in more detail. There are 10 corporations and they're all quite self-explanatory. They'll give you credits and they'll give you resources or production. It can be steel, titanium, heat, or energy. They also give you a special power, which is always on this side. Now, the only corporation that is slightly different is this one. When you go up on your terraforming rate, you can spend 3 credits to go up 1 more step per generation. You'll need a marker cube to place it here to mark that you've played it. After picking one, players keep their corporation hidden. Starting with the first player and proceeding clockwise, you resolve the benefits of each corporation. Now, once you're comfortable with the standard game, you can play with the full version of the game, which is the corporate era. Here, you add all the cards that have a triangle on the lower left side that includes the entire project deck and 2 more corporations. These cards add a lot of science, earth and space cards to the game and a little more complexity, but the biggest change is that your resource production now starts at 0. You only add what you receive from the corporation. So say for example we have this corporation, you would get 1 titanium and 42 mega credits. The game plays and scores exactly the same way for a beginner, standard or corporate era game. The player with the most points wins the game and mega credits break ties. My tips to win at Terraforming Mars are the beginning, middle and end of the game are very different. The beginning is about engine building while it's about scoring points towards the end. Your corporation will in many ways determine your overall strategy, and while it is quite adaptable, it is best if you maximize its benefits. Chase the milestones at the beginning of the game and the awards towards the end of the game. They can give you a lot of victory points. The blue active cards with the plants, animals and microbes can give you a lot of victory points, and at one point will start building on each other. If you have a lot of them, don't forget to play all of them. Make sure you build up your production in the areas that you know you will need, and use the standard projects if you can't get the project cards. The game is quite different at 2, 3, 4 and 5 players. The more players, the faster the game will end, and you'll need to adjust what you can do within that time frame. That's how you play Terraforming Mars. It is never the same game. It's exciting and gripping until the last points are counted. It will take between 1 and 2 hours. If you've enjoyed this video, like and subscribe or leave in the comments a game you'd like us to teach. We'll make more games easy soon. Bye now.